The hard part is when this is clear over there.
Hey Brian, can you hear us?
Hey, yeah.
Come on.
Okay, I'm gonna turn on the LMI.
All right, Julie, I've got the recording started, so we should be good to go.
And we're recording here as well. So we're ready to start.
Excellent.
I got Tice here with me.
Perfect.
Wait.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and
Wait.
start. Today is Wednesday, October 14th,
You should've just hit
2020.
start.
It's
I
6
did.
p.m.
Okay.
It's not
And
doing
I'm calling
it's because you
Vineyard
called
City
it.
Council meeting to order. I'll just go ahead and say the prayer, and then, Jake, did you want to say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Like you do. Okay. Holy Father, we're so grateful for this opportunity to meet as a council and city and constituents to plan this growing town and into something that we can all be proud of and call home. And we just pray that we can be humble and ready to learn and listen so that we can plan it well and take away good insights and think critically about the things that we're doing so that we can make good decisions moving forward. We say this in gratitude in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Go for it, Jake.
All right, I got two helpers in here, so we'll do it by committee. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, we will go ahead and move into our public comments. Pam or Jake, did we have any public comments sent in?
I don't have any.
I don't have any either.
Okay. I don't see any in the chat, but am I missing that from anyone? No? Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 3, and this is Mayor and Council Member reports. Are there any council members that have anything to report this council meeting?
Not for me, Julie.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
Okay,
Nothing for me.
perfect. Then we'll move on to our staff, commission, and committee reports. Jake, did you want to present what you have?
Sorry, I just walked around the backside. I don't think I have anything specifically. I did want to clarify on one of the consent items later in the agenda for the Utah County Recreation Grant. What you're approving tonight is just the grant application. If this project gets approved, we would bring it back to the City Council for further discussion about exactly what we want to do. So this is just a grant application to the county, and that's why it's on consent.
Excellent. Jake, did you want to talk about Buapalooza or anything like that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. So we have the Buapalooza coming up on the 26th, which is 2 weeks. Well, I guess a week from next Monday. We're going to do a reverse drive-through, reverse parade. So we'll do it at Grove Park. You're going to drive through the parking lot, and we're going to have decorations, Halloween costumes, all kinds of stuff around the parking lot. And then we're going to do a spook alley inside a tent that you'll drive through. And then at the end, we will give bags of candy. So you don't need to bring a trick-or-treating bag or anything like that. It's going to be, for the most part, contactless. So you won't be interacting with the staff like you would on a normal year. And at the end of the drive-through, we'll have a way to get you a bag for each of the kids in your car.
I love that. Are there any questions for Jake regarding the event coming up?
I think that's awesome, Jake. Way to just make something fun when things are weird.
Yeah, and I can't take credit for it, but we have a great staff that's pretty good at thinking on their feet and have been good at kind of adapting to our current circumstances.
I think it's an awesome alternative. So thanks to everybody who did that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and Jake, if that's it, I'm just going to move straight to our consent items.
Okay.
Okay. I just need a motion unless someone would like to take something off to discuss it.
I'll make a motion unless somebody else wants to take it off, but my motion would be to approve consent items 5.1 and 5.2.
Can I get a second? That's Christy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, we'll move on to mayor appointments. I had a great opportunity to meet with our youth council mayor and upcoming city manager. They talked a lot about their goals and what they're hoping to see for the city, which I'm sure they'll be presenting to the council at some point in the future. But it was really fun to meet with them. And Jessica, I don't know if you want to have Janelle and Will kind of present the rest of the vacancies that we'll be appointing tonight, or if you wanted to go ahead and do that. Is Jessica on here?
Yeah, I'm on here.
Okay.
Let's see, Janelle, do you want to, do you have that list in front of you? Would you like to just name off the positions and who's elected to it? That'd be awesome.
And state your own position as well.
Okay, well, my name is Janelle Dodson. I'm the youth mayor, and then we're gonna have William Welch as the youth manager, and then Harrison Welch as the youth recorder. We'll have Alexa Dodson as activities chair, Claire Inouye as beautification chair, Jake Golightly as meetings and elections chair, and then as service chair, we'll have Holland Welch.
Excellent. Council, do you have any questions for our youth council? They went through an election process and came and did interviews, and they did a really good job kind of running a system similar to ours.
Was there any rolling of the dice or no? Did their election go as
It
planned?
did not go like that, like yours did. It went as
It
planned.
was a close one, I hear.
I think we should require every one of them to have to roll a dice. No, but thank you, all of you. I think it's great that you're taking part and helping serve in the community. We really do appreciate it from the council's perspective. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Pam, how did you want to do this? Are we going to swear them in at a different time and we'll just make a motion to appoint them now?
Yes, I'm gonna swear them in as they can come in. I think that's easier, because I do need them to be here in person. So if you guys want to just make your motion, that'd be great.
Okay, well, everyone, we're happy to have you. Thanks for presenting, Janelle, and we look forward to working with you. I just need a motion to consider my appointment and approve it.
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yep. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we'll move into discussion and presentations. This is going to be the Central Corridor Transit Study, and I'm not sure who will be presenting to this.
Julie, I think it's Eric Rasband.
Okay. Hi, Eric. So good to have you.
Hello.
Hi,
Mayor,
Mary. I'm only
Council.
saying hi to the people I see directly on my screen. But I'm sure
Jake,
you're all here.
can I share
I think I've got
my
it set
screen?
up. Yeah, I think I've got it set up to where you can share your screen.
Okay, very good. Well, Mayor, Council, thanks for the opportunity to come and visit with you about the Central Corridor Transit Project. We have 3 other team members here tonight. Mary DeLamar Schaefer from UTA, Shane Marshall with Horrocks Engineer, he's our consultant project manager, and Claire Woodman is with Parametrics and helping us through the technical analysis. My name is Eric Rasband. I work for the Utah Department of Transportation. This is an unusual project in that UDOT has been managing a transit study, but it's been done in concert with our partners at UTA, as well as 7 cities along the central part of the valley. Starting from south, moving north, we have Provo, Orem, Vineyard, Linden, Pleasant Grove, American Fork, and Lehigh. Our goal has been to evaluate a high-capacity transit system from Lehigh to Provo, and to select a preferred alternative that includes a mode. And it's been a great project that has included all of our partners. We've had really good discussions with staff and with the mayor as we move forward. The project started last year with data collection. We've worked throughout the year. We're getting really close to finishing the project. A couple of weeks ago, the executives, which includes Jacob and the mayor, voted on a preferred alternative, and we're going to cover that preferred alternative as we move forward. So moving from the north end to the south, you can see that this up at the north end, we're going to be tying into the Adobe location, a station in front of Adobe. This blue line is a transit system that is being evaluated right now by the Utah Transit Authority, tied to the prison redevelopment effort, and we anticipate that there will be a connection. It will either be at the Adobe location or at the station south, which is near the hospital, just south of the hospital there, the Point Mountain. This is it's called in this area the rail alignment because it takes advantage of the UTA owned rail alignment on the east side of I-15. It continues through Lehigh along the east side of I-15 and then crosses under I-15 at about 300 west in Lehigh, and then comes out and parallels State Street down into American Fork. In American Fork, there's some design options into their downtown area. Ultimately, it will transition from State Street, probably across Pacific Drive, and then come down into the historic Main Street area of American Fork. From American Fork, it continues on State Street at North County Boulevard. In Pleasant Grove, it turns south, goes past the interchange area at Pleasant Grove, across 700 North in Linden, over to State Street, and then down State Street through Linden, Orem, and Provo. Comes across 3rd South in Provo and ties into the Front Runner Station in Provo. Then the fun part is this branch piece that we have to make sure that we're connecting to the community of Vineyard. This is an important part of the overall solution and needs to be included with the project. This project creates a robust north-south high-capacity transit system with connections to all of the communities that were included in the study area. And it will help provide an alternative route for the Front Runner and help move people through the central part of the valley. So for the Vineyard branch, we will tie in to the north-south line at State Street and 800 North, and then come across 800 North. There will likely be a station at the hospital at 900 West in Orem, Geneva Road, and then into the Front Runner Station. We anticipate that it's going to come into the town center and tie into the Front Runner. We're currently working with staff and with the developer to ensure that transit vehicle can move around within the town center efficiently. One of the things that we need for a transit vehicle is a reliable connection or reliable route. And so we want to make sure that the transit vehicle, a bus, is able to traverse through town center without creating impacts or slowing, tied to that transit vehicle as it comes in and turns around, serves the Front Runner, and then goes back out to the State Street corridor. We are evaluating another option. As soon as we finish up the study, we will look at a connection from the UVX connection at the Orem Front Runner up Geneva Road, and then also tying into the Vineyard Front Runner. And that would create a loop that would then come across 800 North and connect over to State Street. So we'd have two connections to UVX if that system made sense as we move forward. But for the preferred alternative for the Central Corridor study, we're just looking at an out and back on 800 North. So as we've had a couple of opportunities for the public to provide input on this study. We've received 250 comments. I think those are 250 individual commenters with 750 overall comments. providing a lot of support for the study as we move forward. Strong north-south, strong support for this north-south spine, as well as east-west connections to the front runner. There is some concern about transit creating additional congestion. And one of the things that we're anticipating is we'll have dedicated lanes similar to what you see on University Parkway in Orem, where the transit vehicle has its own lane, and that will limit the impact on the rest of the roadway system and continue to increase that reliability of that transit vehicle that we talked about. Our next steps, we're meeting with all the city councils along the corridor, as well as the UTA board. As we continue to work through this process, we anticipate that we're going to continue with the engineering refinements and ridership numbers. We're looking at the funding options. This project is an expensive project. It's a little over 20 miles in length and has a very large price tag. We're trying to zero in on what that price is, and then trying to figure out the funding mechanisms. We anticipate that in order to fund this project, it's likely that we're going to need to implement a new quarter-cent sales tax. Historically, that generates about $20 million, and which is not going to be enough to construct, but it could be used to leverage funding through a bonding option as we move forward. So we'll be looking at that as we continue to move forward. And then we would like to make recommendations for the local jurisdictions on land use, supportive land use policies and zoning changes to help move this project forward into the implementation stage. We do have a public open house on October 26th and 28th. Those are virtual open houses, and we'll be sending out more information for that. And then at the end, or in the November timeline, we anticipate bringing the executive team back together to close the project out. Mary, would you like to add anything?
Thanks, Eric. I'd love to. I just had some trouble with my AirPods. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks. I am been following Eric around to all the council meetings as we present and talk about this project, and I'd like to let you know that this project is one of the highlights of my career and will be one of the highlights of my career. I get a lot of joy out of seeing us take a very workhorse transit line where many people are dependent on our service to get them where they need to go and make it into something highly functional, with it being frequent and fast and serving an area that's a high need for our community. I love the solution that we came up with Vineyard, with the branch. My operational team is very enthusiastic about exploring having UVX leave the Orem Frontrunner station and then head up to Vineyard and out 8th North, and having those two bus rapid transit systems cross there as well as at University Place. We think that gives people lots of options for being able to move through the county and outside the county. And so we're really looking forward to working through all the details of that. I would love to take any questions or answer any concerns that you have about this project or having a bus rapid transit system or anything just about UTA in general. I'm happy that in our August, what we call Change Day, which is August 23rd, that's when we make a service change. For the first time, we are serving Vineyard community. And that's thanks in large part to Jake and Dawn and the mayor ensuring that we had a couple of bus stops along Mill Road. And so it's a small amount of service, but we are now able to pick people up in that higher density area and bring them to UVU and bring them home in the evening. So it's a small start. We're attracted to ridership, and Vineyard's going to be a place that's going to provide a lot of ridership. So we look forward to having a lot more service. I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns that anyone has.
Thank you, Mary and Eric. It looks like Morgan Brim has a question, our community development director. He said, is the line coming into Vineyard Station a spur line requiring a transfer, or is it part of the full VRT line? And I can answer that we're pushing for it to be connected, but Mary or Shane or Eric, maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, I'll jump in on there. We're going to do an operations workshop to optimize that connection, but we anticipate there will be a transfer at the 800 North State Street location into the Vineyard. And that's, again, going to that reliability aspect of people getting on that north-south line and then diverting that 5 or 10 minutes over to Vineyard. It would impact ridership, and by having that connection with a transfer at the 800 North State Street location, we can continue to maximize ridership on the system, the overall system.
What would be ideal to me at this point was to see a transfer from a BRT line to a BRT line. So that kind of transfer is very different than something that had less frequency. And I feel confident that Vineyard will be at the table helping us work out the best solution for the folks that are getting off at the Vineyard station or using the Vineyard station.
Do you know what the frequency will be? So is it like an every 10 minute, every 5 minute? And then can we coordinate the transfers? So again, I just, my worry is you start losing ridership if people are sitting around waiting.
Right.
Well, Morgan, trust me, we care about ridership. And so we're going to do everything we can to ensure that it's a system that works for the customers. We haven't got to that level of detail yet, but you're asking all the right questions. And those are the things that we're concerned about. It needs to be seamless for the customer. So you step off and you step on, or else they're not going to do it. If they both have high frequency, the two lines meeting, then it shouldn't be a concern.
And Morgan, just to restate, Vineyard has been pushing that it's a continuous stream, like connected straight into BRT, so that it function as BRT and not a secondary line. So we're pushing for the frequency and the things that you're discussing.
That's great. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, are there any additional questions on this?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is Chris on the council. So on this presentation, it talks about high-level recommendations to cities on transit supportive land use policies and zoning changes. Pretty general. What are some of your thoughts on that? What type of recommendations are you looking at?
Density and mixed use, transit supportive. We talk about working with the developer for the town center. The developer is very excited about what's planned in the transit or in the downtown area. But some of the street circulation in that downtown area is not very conducive to transit vehicles. And so we need to work with them to be supportive of those transit vehicles and looking for mixed use, basically nodes around the transit stations to help with ridership.
So understanding that downtown area, you said density first, but maybe what I'm hearing is coordinating with the developer, because the density's already been given there, but coordinating with the developer to make sure that there's more mixed use around those nodes, not necessarily just density.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, what they're really saying too is this, Chris. Everything in that area is conducive for this BRT line, and we had originally had a line that was directly for buses in and out, a lane just for buses, to ensure the walkability and the connection to the train and moving people. They changed the streets a little bit, but because the ancillary streets like Vineyard Connector and some other connectivity is not going to be there for a little bit until we can really push that at a different level. We're having to figure out how to get that direct line for the buses to make sure that they can move at a BRT speed. And that's not incredibly fast, but it's direct, where other buses are going to be less direct.
Yeah, and Eric, you can help clarify this, but I think the plans that we have around our TOD are kind of going to be used as a model for other cities moving forward. I think that's exactly what you're talking about having supportive land use around the train station, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions?
I have a question for Mary. on a related topic. We just filled out our bike-friendly community application, and one of the questions was how much bicycle capacity our transit options had. So do you know the answer to that question? The trains that are coming in, or the buses that are coming in Vineyard, how many bikes they can hold?
I can get you the answer because it depends on what bus I have going and what type of bus I have going through there. There's more capacity on the train, of course.
Right.
There's a lot of capacity on the train. But I need to see what buses have been assigned to your route.
Do all of the buses have at least some?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely.
That's all I need to know, really.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Something more specific, let me know.
Okay, no, that's the level of detail I needed, so perfect.
Great.
And council, if you wanted to, I know that we've sent the maps for the BRT line have been sent out, but if you want to get on a more granular level and read over the data and see what's been going on, Jake has all of the information available. So if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out, and then we can get those comments back as we work through this next phase so that you really understand kind of what is coming, what that connection down on State Street means, any of those aspects that we're looking into right now.
We would love to have your participation in these public meetings as well.
That's great. Okay. Well, Eric, is there anything else from your side? It looks like that was perfect.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and visit with you.
Yes, thanks everyone for coming. So good to see you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, and that is going to be the discussion and action of the amending the zoning code for medical cannabis. We had a public meeting on this last meeting, and now we're continuing part of the discussion between the council this session. So Morgan, if you wanted to continue that conversation from where we left off.
Absolutely. And I also have Jeff Hartley on as well, and he'll be able to, he's done some research on the state level with the Department of, I think the Health Department, but also the Department of Agriculture. Some of the studies that I looked at, it was kind of confusing. One of the direction points was to look more at what the impacts of a medical cannabis pharmacy would have on neighborhoods. And what I found is if there are a lot of, if they're regulated at a high level, then typically there's not a lot of impacts. A lot of the studies I saw combine both the medical and the recreational cannabis into one study, so it was hard to find something specific to Utah. There's a lot of studies coming out of California as they've treaded kind of in this environment for quite some time. One study did not find a link between increased youth use of marijuana and proximity to marijuana dispensaries. Another study did find an increase, but one of the big factors that they believe was signage. That if there wasn't a lot of signage, then the impact would have been quite less. And that's probably something Jeff can speak to. But overall, the studies kind of showed different things. It looked like proximity was pretty big, but also the regulation. California, it looked like, had a lot of unlicensed dispensaries. And I'm not sure how that happens or what category they fell into. But if they were, if people live within the proximity of a licensed dispensary, then it looked like there were not a lot of impacts. Licensed dispensaries go through a pretty high level of state regulation, and that would be the same thing in Utah. You can only have a licensed medical pharmacy here, and the level of regulation, to get the license is pretty intense. That's kind of what I found. So it wasn't really anything specific just on medical cannabis pharmacies. It kind of combined the recreational with the medical pharmacy. And we've got Jeff, and I think Jeff could kind of speak to more of specifically to Utah and how we regulate, both the production facility and the cannabis pharmacy as well.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yeah, thanks, Maureen. In Utah, when they designed the Utah cannabis law, because a ballot measure was making medical cannabis legal, they were very careful to craft protections for the communities. So in Utah, the cultivation locations where they can grow cannabis is limited and regulated by the state, and the pharmacies are limited and regulated by the state. The production facilities where they take the feedstock cannabis product and turn it into something usable for the pharmacies, those are unlimited licenses, but they are regulated by the state. And the reason they're unlimited is because the state's opinion is whoever wants to blend these into usable products should be allowed to, with pretty strong restrictions on. So for example, production facility is limited in it follows the same setback or proximity laws that exist for tobacco and for alcohol, which is 1,000 feet from any community asset. So a park, a library, a primary or secondary school, a church, and they've been tweaking this law over the last few years. It went from 600 feet to 1,000 feet. It went from, people were drawing pretty clever lines of, if you go around the building this way and we only allow access on this side, then it adds footage to our count. They changed the law to make it a linear line measurement so that you have a true 1,000-foot setback. So there's a 1,000-foot requirement on where it can be located. But they also have restrictions on, for example, you can't have the pungent odor of cannabis wafting from the facility. It has to be a hardened, secure facility. They have to provide a security plan in advance. Those security plans are audited and inspected. Facilities are audited and inspected. There's a lot of parameters go into it, but really for Vineyard's concerns, a production facility should look like a nondescript building. There's no signage allowed. There's no retail traffic in and out. And so it should just look like a building that no one really knows what's in there, because the only people that go in and out are either the pharmacies that are picking up product or courier services that are delivering or picking up product. So it should be pretty innocuous to the community. And because of that, they've allowed the cities to zone either light industrial mixed use or commercial mixed use. And there haven't really been any issues because they're too new, but they take their cues from smoke shops, vape shops, and the liquor stores. And they think that the 1,000-foot setback should provide the protections needed for the retail side. There really haven't been concerns expressed at the state level about the production facilities. And I'll answer any questions. There's a lot of details to it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, one question we received from the Planning Commission, and I think the City Council would probably want to hear the same thing, is how is what is done with like the I guess the byproducts or the leftover material in the process? How do they dispose of that?
That is a good question. The state controls that, both with the growing facilities and the processing facility. Any product that is left unused, or any shake, as they call it, or leftover stems and pieces and leaves, those are collected by the facility. The state has the ability to go in and do spot inspections to make sure they are collecting those things, but there's a process the state requires them to follow for destruction of those things, and I'm not sure if they take them to a central location to a prescribed burn on them or something, but there is a process that regulates both the cultivation locations and the processing locations for leftover product.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any further questions that Jeff might be able to answer for us? No?
Maybe one last thing that I would leave with you is that the state will be tweaking the medical cannabis law every year, and they've done it. They made amendments in the general session of the legislature in January and February, and then in 2 special sessions they've amended it again. There will be amendments every year. So if the city finds that there are issues that need to be addressed and stronger ordinance or stronger ability for controls that the city could use or the state should consider, those will always be available because they'll be changing the law every year.
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Jeff, you just covered everything. Everybody feels super comfortable.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it, Chris.
Jeff, so you were mentioning they're looking at it every year and most likely changing it. So let's say they make a change that we as a city aren't in favor of. I mean, what ability do we have at that point?
Well, hopefully we'll be in on the conversations on the front end before they make a change that the city would be opposed to. I track that law in particular pretty closely. It's a new area of law, so I see David Church is on. He could tell you these cities that have these facilities. And for the state, it's all new. It's going to be an evolutionary process, or they're going to make it up as they go and refine it so that there are better controls. As those bills get authored, we're able to provide that impact or that input. Both the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health know that Vineyard's going to have a processing facility there. They track these things pretty closely, and as well, hopefully soon the League of Cities and Towns starts to take a proactive position on how best to set standards that make sense for all of the communities. Some communities don't want these facilities at all. Some communities are okay with, say, a production facility, but they don't want a pharmacy or they don't want a cultivation. And so how each city deals with it is different, and those things will be tweaked because it's so new and it's something the state hasn't done before. They'll be adjusting it, I would guess, for several years, at least 4 or 5 years, just because we're learning as we go.
So essentially, with making approving this here in the city now, essentially it's zoned in. They have the rights, and whatever the state then determines going forward. I mean, we'd have to be in on it on the front end at the legislative level to be able to make our changes. We couldn't retroactively, after they make a change, go back and change something.
Well, you can always petition the state to reconsider it and amend the law that they passed, but both health and ag are pretty proactive about communicating with the constituent municipalities that have facilities for any of those 3 categories, and again, that's what I do. I track those things pretty closely.
Well, and there's only a finite number that are allowed to do certain, like the cultivation. Did you say there were 7 or 8 licensed in the state?
Yeah, those, and they're allowed to do they can do a few more than they have now for cultivation. Pharmacies are also limited, and to be honest, they've had a real hard time getting pharmacies stood up. They have some of the applicants. There were over 100 applicants for pharmacy licenses, but some of them that received the licenses haven't been able to get. They either can't get supply, or they can't get their facility, or they don't have the financing in place to start. So they're lagging on those, but they're controlled as well. There's only going to be 8 of those if they all even stand up. But it's the production facilities that are unlimited. But that doesn't mean there will be hundreds of them, because market demand will dictate that only a few can actually be successful financially because you have limited pharmacies. So.
And that's what we already have available, is that processing one.
Right.
Okay. Chris, did you have a follow-up to that, or council, do you have any further questions? David, did you have anything you wanted to add? Are we good on this?
Yeah, you're good. Jeff's covered it very well. It is what it is. As Jeff has said, the state has kind of co-opted the area in large respect. They're going to be the primary regulators. The law is fairly extensive. your limitations are on this planning and zoning side. After that, it's very heavily regulated, but not necessarily by us, which, as Chris has pointed out, has its pluses and minuses, because since they're doing the regulation and writing the regulations, we'll have input, but we won't be the primary regulators,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yep. That's perfect. Okay, well, thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff. Morgan, is there anything additional, or are you
There's not. No. Yeah, it's ready if you so choose to approve it.
Okay, council?
I just wanted to say I appreciated bringing this back around, giving us a little more time to think about it, and bringing in. I appreciate all the comments that have been made today. It's exactly what I needed to hear in our last meeting, and feel like that's been covered tonight. And I don't know about the rest of the council. I'm sure they have, but I've made sure to ask lots of questions of residents of our city and in the neighborhoods around me. And I've talked to quite a few people in our city about this issue. And I've had a lot of positive feedback from our residents, and they seem to all, at least the people I've talked to, in favor of this. And so I feel comfortable going ahead and making a motion to approve and propose the proposed ordinance 2020-13.
Excellent. Can I get
second that?
Was
I'll
that
second
John?
that. Yep.
Okay, this is done by roll call. John,
Yay.
Tice,
Yay.
Chris,
Yay.
Christy,
Okay.
and yay. Okay, this passed. Thank you, everybody, for your work on that. We'll go ahead and move to 8.2, discussion and action Vineyard Tree Manual Amendment. Brian, I believe you're presenting this, and maybe Tice, you're going to jump in and talk about it as well. So take it away.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we've been working on this document now for a little bit, and the process was overseen by Councilmember Tice Flake, also Planning Commissioner Amber Rasmussen, and Parks Manager Sylvan Love. This document really presents a really good starting place to move forward with our tree selections into the future. All the plants have been reviewed for their ability to thrive in the vineyard microclimate and help us to have a good, healthy. The document's really user-friendly, and it's made to be a living and breathing document. So if any changes or additions need to be made to the manual, the document sets forth the authority for the city to make those adequate changes and put them in place. And yeah, we just want to keep moving forward with this document. Do you guys have any questions any questions for me?
Council, do you have any questions on any of the changes or updates?
I would just like to say thank you I know Amber has been a huge driving force behind this. So thank you so much to Amber. I mean, obviously she does so much for the city in terms of
Yeah, she's awesome.
horticulture. I don't know if that's the right word through her Facebook outreach, but just her passion behind this, and working with Tice, who was the, original, our OG for the tree manual. So I think the updates are awesome. I'm so excited to have it just be more robust, because I have my own, just on my own with my own landscaping, referred to the original tree manual many times and wish that it had some of these improvements. So I'm really excited. So thank you.
That's great.
Yeah,
and
thanks so much, Christy.
For all of us, Christy. Yep.
Yeah, also shout out to Tice. He really was a really good, provided a lot of guidance in there, making some of those major revisions to make sure that all those trees are the right kinds of species and all that. So I want to thank him for that.
Yeah, he's been wonderful bringing this forward. Council, do you have any other questions, or can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-17 Vineyard City Tree and Landscape Manual.
And a second?
Second.
This is done by resolution. Pam, does that mean we could just make a motion? Like a yay or nay?
No, you
Or-
need to have a roll call.
Okay. Christy?
Yay.
Thais?
Yay.
Dawn?
Yay?
Chris?
Yay.
And yay. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of your hard work. We really appreciate all of that effort and volunteer work and just really making this come together. So we appreciate you. Thank you. 8.3, discussion and action. Utah County Tourism, Recreation, Cultural Convention, and Airport Facilities Tax Grant. So we were able to go, and Jake, are you presenting this? Sorry.
I can, yeah.
Okay, go for it.
So the mayor and I were able to go to the county commission meeting 2 weeks ago, and we presented our plans for the downtown waterfront area along our Vineyard downtown. The commission has been really excited about the plans. We've been working with them for a few months, and we got an approval from the TRCC group. It's been a few months back, but we were able to make that presentation to the county commission on the 30th of September, and they approved our grant for just under $3 million. The amount was $2,954,766. The grant is a match towards both the RDA funds that will be contributed to the downtown and the developer contributions that are part of our development agreement that was approved last year. So they're going to enhance that beach area and the piers that we've talked about. And so that was really exciting to be a part of that. And so what we need to do now is approve the resolution and allow the mayor to sign the grant agreement with the county.
Thanks, Jake.
Happy to
We're
answer questions.
Yeah, we're really grateful. We were able to go down and meet, and the developers, Anderson Group, came with us, and Eric Ellis from the Lake Commission was there, and it was really nice to have the support. We were one of the groups that, because of the match and the partnership between these entities, we were able to get the full amount, and so it was pretty remarkable. Any questions for Jake?
So just for clarification purposes, in the agreement, it terms out on the 31st of March in 2024. So essentially that means all improvements have to be done and submitted for reimbursement before or by that date?
Yeah.
Okay. What's,
Chris, if you wanted to push back and say that we didn't want a deadline there, we could put that stipulation and push back on it. This is just a contract that we reviewed. But if, I don't know, Jake, if they would make us go back through the approval process with them, which was quite a feat.
Yeah, I'm confident that we can get the project moving in that amount of time. I mean, our matching funds and part of the project that was approved as this grant included Sunset Beach Park. And as you know, most of Sunset Beach Park is done. So, we've got plenty of work to do, but we also have work that's been done already. So I'm not concerned with the timing on my end.
Did you have a follow-up to that, Chris, at all?
Yeah, no, just, I think that's great. Just having flexibility in contracts is always beneficial, as we've seen, even with the RDA and any agreement that people said they'd build certain buildings, sometimes things come up, and just wanting to make sure that we feel comfortable that essentially a little over, 3 years at this point now, right? That this will be done. So I guess the matching funds from the developer, is there a timeline on when their funds go in compared to our funds? Just making sure that, we're not left having to bring up more funds at the end of this if they're no longer, do they sign this agreement as well? Or is it just between us?
I believe that obligation actually goes through our contracts with the developer through the RDA, and that's how it will go according to our contracts with them.
So
yeah, most of the backing for this, or the protection for the RDA, in that regard is handled with our development agreement. So
With
a lot
our
of their
reimbursement?
through land contributions
Okay.
and stuff like that. That's already identified in the development.
Okay. Yeah, I'm comfortable as long as we're, Jake, you feel comfortable and the other council members feel comfortable that by that date we'll be done. And if not, then hopefully we have an understanding county commission. So.
Yes. Okay. Well, if everybody feels comfortable, I just need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make the motion. Let me look back where I'm at. I'll make a motion that we adopt the Utah County Tourism, Recreation, Cultural Convention, and Airport Facilities Tax Act Grant Agreement, Resolution 2020-18, and allow the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
Okay, and this is done by resolution. So Christy,
Yay.
John,
Yay.
Chris,
Yay.
Tice,
Yay.
and yay. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to 8.4, discussion and action, the Municipal Code Amendment, Section 2.08, City Manager Ordinance 2020-14. So we, a few months ago, had a discussion about changing the policy manual to talk about the hiring process for a city engineer and all department heads, and involving the city council in this process. When we talked about putting it in the policy manual, Jake pointed out that if we really wanted to codify it, we needed to put it into the city manager ordinance. So that is the discussion on the table tonight. Everybody's been talking about it. I want to go ahead and just start with asking if there's comments and discussion from the council.
I think from my perspective, just getting a good outline, and I think it'd be important for those who are listening that aren't in the day-to-day operations of what a city manager does. What are the key changes that you're proposing here?
Now, Jake, I don't know, did you have them written up from the changes that we made? I know that I had sent them to you and I didn't know how you had presented to the council.
The ordinance is, the copy you guys got in your agenda is a red line copy. And so it identifies really the two changes that were being proposed.
Right, I think we just need to state that so that those who maybe aren't looking at it in front of them. So sometimes it's hard between Zoom. Yeah, I think we just read
right
it
now in section 8, it talks about that's the section that talks about the city manager's authority to hire employees. And we've added a section 8.A, and that says the hiring process for department directors will include panel interviews with city council, and the final hiring decision will be ratified by the city council. And then on the firing of department heads, or the termination process for a department head, the old process said that the city manager will notify the governing body 48 hours prior to the effective date of any permanent termination of any city department director. And the new policy would say, or the new policy, or the new ordinance, the changes to this ordinance would say that the city manager will hold a closed session with the city council prior to termination of any city department director. So it takes out the, excuse me, it takes out the timing requirement and just requires a city closed session to be held.
Thank you. I think that just helps those who, can't see it. So here, council, here are my thoughts, and I think there's pros and cons to each option, like how it was before, and even how the proposal is showing here. I'm generally actually okay with the change on number 14. I think that's, I think that any city manager is still going to probably communicate any issues and things like that with council members and mayor, whether that be in a closed session or not. But if we want to create a closed session where that happens, I think that's completely fine. I like that it actually still keeps some ability within the city manager's hands, as it states there, to be able to institute suspensions, administrative leave, things like that. My main issue I have with the addition in 8A, I guess, would be the way I look at it is if I was hiring for a city engineer or whatever position it is in a different city. I actually like the panel interviews with city council. I think that isn't the important part of it. The final hiring decision will be ratified by the city council is where I have some heartburn, just because if I was that city engineer and I was at a different city and I received a proposal from the city manager, and the stipulation is, well, this needs to be ratified by the city council. How do we do that in a way that doesn't notify the other city or their prior employment, or in the scenario where, a department head comes in and gets 3 of the 5 votes, he automatically or she automatically feels like I've got 2 people on the council that already don't approve of me. So those are some of the concerns I was thinking about. And I'd like to just maybe hear the other council's perspective and thoughts maybe on those concerns that I had.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. You make some good points. Council, I'll let you respond to it before I do.
I've been thinking about this one quite a bit, and I think that going through that city engineer panel, I wasn't there very long, but I realized I was woefully unqualified to interview city engineers. I like them all. I thought they were all great people. So my problem is I like the idea of those city council members that want to participate in the panel participating. But ultimately, I'm not going to be working day to day with any department head like Jake will. So I think ultimately, and from a less red tape, I don't want more red tape. I think we want to create less red tape. I'm probably of the opinion, city council helping with the panel, absolutely. If you feel like you can get in there and you want to be a part of that, go for it. But that's kind of where I'm sitting right now on this whole topic.
Great, thank you.
I'll just add, I sort of go along with Chris. I have a time issue with the addition in section 8. How do we propose to deal with the time in between the interview and the approval? And as also Chris mentioned, the problem of interacting that he pointed out. I'm a little uneasy with that section. Everything else is fine.
Okay, thanks, Tice. Christy?
Yeah, I agree that could be a little difficult, I think, that period of time. I do like having all of this in writing because we don't know who the future city manager is ever going to be and how that relationship is going to work with the council. So I like the idea of the change in section 14, that they just hold that closed session, and I like having it in writing, even though you hope that people communicate well, but you just never know, because what we know about city government is there's constant change. So having things in writing is really good. I do agree that the council should be involved in the process of hiring department heads, just because, the whole point of city government and what we do as council members and as the mayor, as elected officials, is we're the voice of the people. We're creating the vision for the city, and these department heads are the ones that are the main key peoples implementing all of that vision. And so if we're not all on board, it's just not going to work. And I like the idea of them having some kind of relationship and tied to the city council. So it isn't just the city manager, because then it's just like it's them, and then there's this weird entity that shows up twice a month that votes on things. So I like the idea that there's this, but we are included from the very start, the birth process of their, hiring. I do hear the problems though on the second part of that ratification. So I'd be curious to hear what Julie has to say. It sounds like you have some thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Chrissy. I think that's good. I agree with you. I think this is really critical. I like codifying things, our processes. I think if we have that, then we always know that no matter where we are, who we hire, who's elected, there's a system that people can rely on. And I think that's important. So like everybody said, I think talking about it in a closed session to make sure we're all on the same page before we just receive notification is critical. I think that panel, and the reason why we brought this forward initially was to create that process that needed to be adhered to within the policy, and that's when Jake mentioned it had to go through this city manager process if we wanted to have the final say on it as far as hiring goes. I think that getting around the timeline, what they say is slow is smooth and smooth is efficient when you're hiring somebody that's going to make some pretty big decisions and have a lot of variances. When making decisions about the legislative decisions that we vote in as city council and as the appointed planning commission. So I feel like timing isn't necessarily that important to me. The point that Chris made, where what if we have to ratify it and then they're notifying those people, or we gave an offer and then we ratified it and somebody didn't agree, but they had already let somebody know that they were leaving their job. I could see that issue because I know that that's happened in other circumstances in other cities. I think the way that we could get around it, if that was something that we wanted to do, was include the ratifying process, is that we could hold a closed session and determine, or call a meeting that wasn't 14 days out and make that determination before sending out an official letter and saying this is kind of our process, is we're making a decision to go ahead and offer a letter, and then we offer the letter, and when they accept, we make another meeting to ratify it. I don't think that is that big of a deal, because hopefully as a city, we're not constantly hiring department heads. The goal is that we hire somebody who's going to be with us for a while. We're going to treat them well, and there's not going to be this turnaround that's making this process monotonous and something we're having to do all the time. But if we did have to do it a few times for a city engineer to get the person that really worked for us, I feel like it would be great if we could be a part of that. Well, what I like about the system as it is that once we hire them, the firing process, the management process stays with the city manager and continues to work as normal in that administrative role. So however the council wants to take it, my real focus here is just codifying the process and the plan and making sure that council's involved. And for me, that decision and making sure that it comes to the council, there are a lot of situations where if it's not in the code, it just doesn't happen so many times. And so that's where I'm sharing my 2 cents, because I want to make sure that whenever we leave, or whenever Jake leaves, or whenever the next situation happens, there's a system that's reliable and that can be counted on.
I think that's a good solution, actually, Julie, because I know that's adding one more step, and John brings up the idea of we don't want more red tape, but like you said, I mean, the last time we hired a department head was several years ago. So it's not something that comes around very often. And it is a very important position in our city. And we do expect them to be around. I would much rather have one extra step to hire the right person than to have to fire somebody. I don't, slow to hire, slow to fire. So.
Or end up in a situation where we were a few years ago where the city council wasn't involved, and we hired somebody that ended up being somebody that didn't follow the vision of the people, didn't listen to the city council, put people at odds, and wasn't doing their job, but there wasn't any ability to remove the person or to have any say in that position. I think we're in a better position today because we have a city manager that we all love working with and understands that process. But it isn't the slow to hire, slow to fire is really making sure our eyes are wide open when we're going into something like this.
Can I ask just a couple clarifying questions, Julie and Christy?
Please.
So, I guess, and piggybacking a little bit off of John's perspective too. So, what additional, I guess, information would you need to glean in a ratifying session that you couldn't have already gotten in your panel interviews? What additional, you know what I mean, slowing the process and making sure we hire appropriately? If we built in 8A that states the hiring process for department directors will include panel interviews with the city council.
Honestly, for me, Chris,
what would be the additional need for the ratifying that you think, what additional information you'd be getting?
Yeah, honestly, for me, Chris, the only thing, as I mentioned, is that it was just codifying final approval. If we want to keep it where we're not ratifying it and the panel agrees and then it goes and the city manager is supposed to carry that out, and then if the city manager doesn't do what the panel said and there was input and the city council had a fair weigh-in on it and they understood the process that was going on, because you would want the city manager to present to the city council what was going to happen before they hired, so that we knew what the panel said, how it went, things like that, I'm imagining. And so this is just saying, hey, if the process is going through the city council and the city council is carrying the vision for the department head, then we would ratify it, because that's just what we do normally as a city council. But if we wanted it to stay with the city manager and then offer some kind of correctional thing like, hey, the city manager didn't listen to us, here's our sign, we could do that too. I just think it's easier to put it into code because it provides a reliable system. And like I said, in many places, just because you have a process that says something, if it's not in code, you don't have to follow it.
I understand the code aspect of it.
Oh yeah, that was it for me.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to understand, if we ever had a city manager, and I'm not using Jake as an example, so don't be offended, Jake, but if we had a city manager that wasn't following what the guidance or our vision for Vineyard was, my hope would be we would replace that city manager. And so that, to me, I think being involved in the panel interview process for those who want to be involved, not every council member does not need to be involved in that process. I think that would be key. I'm strongly not in favor of ratifying. I would be a completely no vote on this if we decide to put a ratification by the council.
Okay, that's great to know. Council, do you have any comments on the current discussion? Do you feel good about adding the ratification process in, or did you feel like you'd prefer to go through a different mechanism and we can prove those other 2 points? Christy, did you have further follow-up?
I would just say to kind of like the questions Chris was asking is, if I was basing this decision off of my experience right now, because we're going through this process, Jake has been so communicative, if I could ensure that everyone was like that, then there would be no issue. I absolutely can see a situation where there wasn't communication happening. And I know Chris does bring up a good point that then you would then want to discuss maybe letting go of your city manager. I like the idea of having it written down. And so then a future city manager can just see, this is the process. This is what the city council here wants. And it's just clear from the start, from day one as a city manager. And I don't have any problem having a quick, like in the case of hiring right now, I imagine if we have to do a closed session because that's what we add to the language, it would probably be a 5-minute conversation because all of us would probably have already talked about it ad nauseum, which that's fine. That's fine right now. And in the future, if they haven't, then they can have whoever that is can have a hearty discussion in that closed session. And if that decision is made in a closed session and they can move forward, offering a letter to that individual and then going to city council a few weeks later just to have it officially ratified. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, and we also do it for other appointments. Like for instance, we're doing it for, it's similar. We're doing it for legal counsel, just similar things like that.
True, and the legal counsel's always been underneath. So what we're changing is that's always been underneath the council. What we're changing now is something that we gave duties to the city manager, and now we're trying to take it back. And so to me, my question is, and Julie, you brought up a good point. There was a time when, there were feelings that a certain department head who's no longer here was hired. But at that point in time, I don't believe we had a city manager.
Yeah, and I think I see it a little bit differently than you, because what really occurred at that time is that we had a process where the council was involved and then the council wasn't involved in the same executive. And then when we gave these powers, those powers over, we didn't really change our process. For instance, the first department head that we're hiring, we're going through the same process. We're just codifying it. And that's my point. If we have a process and we're doing it this way, I'd like to see it written down and codified, because it's not necessarily that we're taking anything. We're doing it. We're just writing it down. And it's our first moment to really review this. When I first brought this forward and kind of presented having a city manager and really delved into this, I understand the critical need to have somebody with the expertise and administrative duties that Jake has to run this operation. It makes the city better and it's important, but when it comes to carrying the vision of the city, I think that's part of our duty, and I think that's why we've come up with this cohesive plan that we have right now, and I think that's why I see it as something that's here and present and just needs to be codified.
No, I appreciate we can all have a difference of opinion, and that's what I love about this is, we get good discussion on it. And
absolutely.
If there's, since I'm kind of maybe out there on my own, I would like to make a motion, and then if my motion doesn't pass, then I think somebody else can make a motion. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair, Chris. Go for it.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend Vineyard Ordinance 2020-12 as proposed, striking in 8A from, and the final hiring decision will be ratified by the city council. So leaving in the hiring process for department director will include panel interviews with city council, but striking out and the final hiring decision will be ratified by city council.
Okay, is there an adjustment to the motion or a second?
I can second that.
So can I make a counter motion after it's been seconded?
Yeah, you can.
I think we have to vote first to see if it will pass, unless Tice and Julie feel like they want to hear it.
One time in planning commission, we made 3 motions in a row. But I still don't understand how it worked.
Make your make your comment, and I can amend the motion if I so feel. Is that fair?
Pam, is that how it works, or can they alter motions? Can somebody counter a motion?
I think let's leave that to David Church, because we haven't run across that yet.
I'm fine, Julie and Christy. Christy, I think make your comment, and if I feel so inclined, I can amend my motion. I think that's fair.
Yeah. So before I make my motion, I'll just state one more time why I'm going to make a motion that we do it as it's proposed. And the reason, again, for me, ultimately is, you know, I'm the most junior member of the city council right now. It's been my first year. It hasn't even been a year yet on city council. And it's been a strange year, I'll admit. There's been a lot of reasons why what I'm about to say could be the case, but I definitely don't feel like coming into city council there was this immediate relationship with all the department heads. It's not like you walk in and day one and everyone's like, hey, come meet with me, let's, you know, have a relationship. It's kind of like, hey, figure this out. And so I feel like, again, if somebody had to come before the city council as a department head and develop day one on their job, you know, it just kind of, as they stand and are ratified in front of a council, it just brings home again that is part of their relationship in the city. Yes, they work with the city manager 99% of the time, but to remember their job is a different job than maybe, you know, city government's different. We do all have to, we're working for the people in our city, and this people chose the city council, and we're the voice of those people. And it's, to me, it's just like that strange reminder that this is a relationship that's important. And so that is the reason why I would make a motion to approve the Municipal Code Amendment Section 2.08, City Manager Ordinance 2020-14 as presented.
So this would be a substitute motion. David Church, are you still on here?
Yes,
No?
I am.
Oh, you are. Okay. If this is a substitute motion, how do we proceed from here? Just ask Tice what he feels?
Well, she's the way I'm understanding it, Christy is really making a motion to amend Chris's motion, which has been seconded. If she gets a second to her motion to amend the motion, then you would vote on the motion to amend first. If that passes, then you vote on the amended motion. If it fails, you then go back to the original motion.
Okay.
So she's moved to amend his motion, and now we're looking for a second on that motion.
Okay. Would anybody like to second Christy's motion? Doesn't look like it, Christy. Okay. So we're going back to the original motion.
Do I need to restate that, or are we okay with where it's at?
I don't think so. I think it's good where it's at. John, who seconded it? John, you seconded
John
it?
did.
Okay, all in favor? Wait, this is done by ordinance. So Chris?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Tice?
Yay.
Christy?
No.
And no, for me as well. Okay, it looks like it passed. That's great. We'll go ahead and move on to, let's see, 8.5 discussion. This is discussing the same exact thing, but Albert is here to answer any questions for how we want it written in the policy manual. Is there anything additional, or Albert, would you like to add anything to this?
No, I think I heard it correctly, so we can have that written up.
Okay. Any questions for Albert? No? Excellent. Well, that closes our meeting, and I believe we are going into a closed session, so I need a motion to go into a closed session.
So moved.
Second.
And I also need, yes,
Mayor,
go ahead.
let me
For the
just say
regional.
that I know that in your closed session, you're going to be interviewing my replacement. So this may be my very last meeting. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you for the work. Thank you for the relationships. I hope that you have good interviews and can make a decision.
Oh, David, I didn't even think this. I just thought we were going to carry you out forever and keep having you come to our meetings despite our next meeting.
Yeah, but
You're like, but that's not it. I'm leaving.
you know, this may be the last if you can actually agree on somebody. So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
Can I make a comment?
yeah, I think we're all going to. Remember
Yeah.
when I cried the last meeting?
Yeah. So David, he accepted the responsibility to come down here in 2002. So he's been part of the city for 18 years. And I just want to make sure we recognize that publicly, and all the changes that the city's been through in the last 18 years and the incredible work he's done for the city. And I think in his RFP, not to call him out, but in his RFP response, at the time, he claimed to already have over 20 years of municipal experience. So he's got to be probably the most qualified city attorney in the state of Utah. So I just want to say thank you publicly, and I'm excited to see that he's tying flies for his next career. And I look forward to hearing more fish stories from him.
Yeah, honestly, David, this city would not be as amazing as it is if you had not been here. It would not be what it is today. And I'm just grateful that during my time being here, that you have been here, and it's been really amazing as you've like helped guide me through this process, and definitely going to miss you.
well, I appreciate that. It's hard to say that you would have been, whether you'd been better off or worse off without me. I will say that you'll soon learn that there are lots more ambitious and better attorneys than I am to help you out, and you won't miss me for long, I'm sure. But I've appreciated the work. I've appreciated the associations. You guys have been a very good client. And I didn't realize it had been that long, 18 years. I should have gone on the pension plan. I'd have been vested almost.
Yeah.
And I did have over 20 years experience then. I've been representing cities since 1980, so that's a long time.
Yeah.
And
it's
can I
pretty
just say
remarkable.
thank you as well? I appreciate all your help that you've done over the last 7 years that I've been here too. So thank you, David.
It's all right. And you can all feel free to call me and second guess any of the advice that your new attorney might give you, because I'm sure they'll be second guessing the advice that I've given you in the past.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. I also need a motion to adjourn, actually.
Julie, do we need to amend the mention that we were going into a closed session? We need to state the reason.
Will you just
and I
start
think
it
the-
over? Yeah, and
Sure.
state there's two reasons that you need to quote in there.
Yep.
Thank
Do
you.
you want me to go ahead and do that, Julie, or?
Yes, please.
So I move that we go into a closed session tonight for reason A, discussion of character, professional competence, physical or mental health of an individual. And then also, let's see.
Is it the sale of real property? Jim?
Yes, strategy sessions to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water rights or water shares.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Roll call. Roll call, please.
Oh,
Roll
thanks.
call.
Thanks, Pam. Chris?
Yay.
Tice?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Christy? Yay. And yay. Okay. And a motion to adjourn. Did we do that?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
Hey, thanks everyone for coming. We really appreciate you. Have a great night. I believe everybody going on to the closed session